Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
Hold one, Andre.
You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon.
You just made the list.
Oh my God!
Sorry, no speak English.
Dummy. Goodbye and good night. Hold two, on bar.
It's still real to me, damn it!
Dummy.
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
Hold three, Lamas covered, three-handle family Gradunzel.
Mamma mia!
And now, Unchained.media presents the B Plus Podcast with your host, Greg Unchained.
It's me, Austin! It was me all along, Austin!
Number 4, Armbar.
I will never retire!
I still got 200 more. I got 200 more holes to list.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the B Plus Wrestling Podcast for All The Rest here. I am now your official host, I feel like I can officially say, of All The Rest. I am your man of mystery, Mr. Mysterious, and our fearless leader, Greg Unchained, has, in our previous episode, given me the task, the duty, the responsibility, the great power to look after All The Rest. So I'm very honoured for the opportunity. I'm very honoured to see how the B Plus will grow, and all you guys listening will grow and listen to us, and as we talk about everything in Australian wrestling, everything in international, and I just kind of bring everything together and talk about all the rest, everything else with an asterisk that doesn't fit into our scheduled programming. So I am Mr. Mysterious, and I want to get a hashtag going just to celebrate. This is my hashtag, the mystery spot, because I am in my little office here, and I feel like we need to really get into this, because we are down Lucha Underground. We are not allowed. We don't have any Lucha Underground news to talk about now that the Season 4 has officially finished. We will get recaps going sooner, hopefully in the next coming months, and hopefully when they announce a Season 5. I do not like cliffhangers. So, you guys should know by now, if you're frequent listeners, Wednesday we have our Skin Kings of the Sport Universe podcast covering New Japan and its affiliated productions. Friday we have our Aussie Grabs, where we talk to an Australian wrestler or promoter or someone who's just helping to promote and make Australian wrestling grow into something that the whole world can enjoy. And Saturday we have our view from the WWE Universe. But today we are talking about All The Rest. Now, for those of you guys that don't know, I am in charge mostly of the Facebook posts, keeping you guys updated, and the birthday news. Now, at the time I'm recording, I'm sorry to say there are no birthdays, but I will announce that yesterday, at the time I'm recording, yesterday was a very special birthday. The man would have been 66.
Oh, yeah.
The Macho Man, Randy Savage, would have turned 66. What can you say about Randy Savage? Iconic character, multiple-time WWF champion, WCW champion, one half of the Mega Powers, best handshake ever, and also he's part of the Marvel world, being Bonesaw McGraw in the Spider-Man movies. If you talk to anyone about Marvel and the Macho Man, you will hear the words "Bonesaw is ready" spoken without a second thought, because Randy Savage in the original Spider-Man is really a treat. I am getting off topic, so I'm going to cover for you guys a little bit of MLW, not Lucha Underground unfortunately, but we will be covering all the other WWE news and all the other news in the independent scene and just whatever has crossed our desk, hot off the press. So we will start with MLW episode 30, tagged with the headline of the World Heavyweight Championship match between Low Ki and Daga. Now, we started off with a recap with Conan and Selena talking about their respective groups. You got Matt Striker and Tony Schiavone on commentary as always, breaking down the matches. We saw the Puma King going up in his official debut. Like I said, he actually had a match last week against Ricky Martinez, so this is his official debut. I don't know what you want to call it. We had the first singles match with Mr. Fun-Size Marco Stunt, and we had 2 title matches, which is really great to see. So we saw the MLW Middleweight Championship being defended in a triple threat elimination match between the champion versus Jimmy Uta versus Jason Cade, and then we ended, of course, with the Heavyweight Championship match. So, pretty much, I had a good time with this episode of MLW. So we started out with Myron Reed versus Marco Stunt. Now, for those of you guys that heard, if you follow the All The Rest and you've watched my journey with MLW and me talking about all the crazy characters that are a part of it, I mentioned a couple weeks ago when Marco Stunt was in the when it was the Hart Foundation going up against Rich Swann, ACH, and Marco Stunt in Marco's first match with MLW. I mentioned that he made the Hart Dynasty look so great because they just tossed him around like a rag doll. It was amazing to watch, and it made Teddy look even more like a beast. Now, this is the chance for Marco to show what he has in terms of just as a singles competitor. Myron Reed is also a small competitor, but nowhere near as small as Marco Stunt, so you have a bit of a size difference, and throughout the match, Marco is, for comedic effect, trying to suplex Myron Reed. It's like, I don't know if I'm gonna show my age, like Colin Delaney in the late 2000s with WWE. He has that similar build. If you look up Colin Delaney and you look up Marco Stunt, you'll know what I'm talking about in terms of like the really stick figure build that I'm trying to describe here. So these guys had a pretty fun match. Of course, Marco is, because he is Mr. Fun Size, he is all about using momentum to get the better of his opponents, especially guys like Myron Reed. So there's not as much of a size difference, so he can really outmaneuver him a little bit. Reed was able to reverse out a lot of Stunt's momentum by keeping his own body moving, using some weight advantages. My favorite spot throughout this, Myron Reed, he hit a cutter, and then he went outside to the ramp. So the ramp is like directly connected to the ring. So there's no slope and then the steps. It's a straight ramp to the ring. So it's a straight beeline for the ring. Myron Reed goes out. He does a big runner, jumps over the ring ropes, and does a cutter. And he only got the 2 count. What the hell? That should have been a finishing... I don't know why that's not a finishing move. That should completely be a finishing move. Any variations on the cutter I absolutely love. I love Jay Lethal's Lethal Injection. Like just the simple thing of flipping off the ring ropes and then just jumping into a big cutter. You know, like we've seen the cutter done, like the RKO done by Randy Orton, by DDP a million times. To see a different variation on it, it's like you've got Homicide, I could name drop a couple guys here in Perth that do the same thing. Being able to provide a new take on moves like that, they should be finishers. And I would have been really happy if the match had kind of finished there, and it would have been sad that Marco Stunt kind of lost in that fashion, but you know what? I wouldn't have cared. So Myron Reed did pick up the victory, but it was more about a couple roll-ups that kind of went awry, and then Myron Reed had to really use his weight to get the quick pinfall. So it wasn't a decisive victory, it was a quick roll-up victory, so it was really just a good showing for both men. I am really looking forward to see Marco Stunt eventually getting the win in MLW, so it might be a little underdog story we've got going forward, and Myron Reed, please keep doing that move. I am really looking forward to more of Myron Reed. If anything else, this was just a great match to show how awesome these guys are and that they need a bit more screen time in MLW, which is hard because 1 hour's worth of wrestling free on YouTube every week. Get into it, guys. I cannot stress that enough. Now, moving on. So, we, of course, get a little segment where MJF, Maxwell J. Freeman, the middleweight champion, is at an autograph signing, of course, with his girlfriend, lover, confidant, Aria Blake. It's kind of are they a will they, won't they? Is Maxwell taking advantage of her? Like, we'll see in the next few weeks. As far as at the moment, it seems like a balanced relationship on there. But yeah, interestingly enough, they've actually said Shane Swerve Strickland was actually meant to be at the signing with MJF, but he didn't show. Now, this is a reoccurring thing, where in the Chicago interview section, where an MLW was in, I believe it was Chicago, you guys can correct in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the taping where Loki and Tom Lawler confronted each other in the hallway, and then of course Sami Callihan choked out Tom Lawler. At that day where MLW was, Strickland was actually meant to be there as well, but he didn't show. So this is, I feel like they're really slowly laying the seeds for Swerve to do a heel turn. Like, of course, he's got his championship rematch against the heavyweight champion Low-Key. We'll see how we do. Of course, maybe I've spoiled it, haven't I? Of course, with Low-Key having won the match against Daga, but I don't think that's a real shock because of all the stuff that MLW posted about Daga's injury leading up to it. So I don't feel I'm going to talk about it later, anyways. But I feel like, especially with Strickland, how he had his fight with with Tom Lawler, and Loki came out he was doing commentary, and while the ref was distracted by Selena, he attacked Tom Lawler, and Strickland capitalized on it, and it looked like Loki kind of gave Swerve favor in some weird way. So I don't know. I reckon a heel turn would be good for him. He's had a string of bad luck, so if he is yet again unsuccessful in his rematch to once again reclaim the MLW Heavyweight Championship, we'll see. I reckon he could be a great heel. If you've seen his work in Lucha Underground as Killshot, you know there's a lot of potential there. So anyways, you had, just a funny segment with MJF doing at an autograph signing with a kid, just saying how he loves kids and then just telling a kid to piss off. That's just warms your heart. We have Loki doing a tape segment with Selena and Ricky Martinez, just saying how Promociones Dorado have completely dominated Conan and all of his competitors, and saying that he's offering, and Conan is just offering up another young lamb to the slaughter in Daga in his debut match with MLW. It's kind of hard to argue against Loki. I'm not going to lie. Conan's track record against Promociones Dorado has not been very stellar. Of course, we do have the tag team match coming up between the Lucha Brothers, the tag team champions, going up against LA Park and his son El Hijo de LA Park. It would be nice. Of course, Conan's been taking a few beatings lately, so we'll see how the Lucha Brothers go. Maybe LA Park and his son will win. Who knows? We'll keep you guys updated as we always do. And yeah, we've got a recap of what happened to Filthy Tom Lawler from last week, and the promo, of course, with Sami Callihan. They play the tape of him choking him out. Callihan recaps his list of victims: MVP, Shane Strickland, Jimmy Havoc. He reiterates that he's a maniac for hire and he's willing to keep taking money to take anyone out. And next episode, you will notice that it is main evented. The headline for this one is a Chicago street fight between the mercenary, Sami Callihan. I don't know if that's a new tagline, but I'm going with it. The mercenary going up against Filthy Tom Lawler. Now, we started off with the first of our championship matches. So we had the MLW Middleweight Championship with a triple threat elimination match. So MJF, really, for the most part, he's just steering clear because Jason Cade and Jimmy Uno have been feuding for quite a while now. And, of course, the fact that this is a triple threat elimination match, really, you're just seeing Jimmy Uno and Jason Cade beat the shit out of each other, and one of them gets the victory over the other, one gets pissed off, one helps MJF to win. They keep having their feud, and MJF is still the victor. That's pretty much how it went. So, you had MJF, he was okay for the most part. He kept his distance for a lot of the match. However, Yuta kind of forced MJF to get involved, and MJF and Jason Cade did team up initially to take out Jimmy Yuta. It worked for a little bit, but there's a bit of miscommunication. Of course, they had when they did a double team, MJF went for the handshake or the high five, and Jason Cade went for the fist bump, and then they both did the opposite stuff, and they're just like, we'll work on it, just comedic stuff like that. It was pretty fun. Cade laid out Yuta with a powerbomb before dropping a burning hammer onto MJF, with MJF onto Yuta. That one was really awesome. It was a near fall, obviously. MJF did, when he had to, he started really doing a lot of combination moves that really were impressive, that befitting of a middleweight champion. Yuta locked in, this was my favorite spot of the whole match. He locked in a double submission. He did a tarantula on Cade, and then he did an ankle lock on MJF at the same time. That takes so much core strength. I loved it. I wish more people would do that, especially in triple threats. Like, I know this was an elimination match, and that would have been even better. Like, of course, he wasn't going to win the middleweight championship just yet. We'll work up to that again. But even in any triple threat match, I would love to see someone defeating the other two competitors at the same time. That spot is not done nearly enough. It felt fresh. It felt amazing. Great spot and great thing for MLW. So, following the breakup of both those moves, Cade was eliminated by Jimmy Uta just with a quick roll-up. So, of course, Jimmy Uta, I was going to say Jason Cade, he wasn't too happy about that. Aria Blake started distracting the referee, and then Cade jumped back into the ring, gave Uta a low blow, and a powerbomb. This allowed MJF to pick up the win and retain the MLW Middleweight Championship. It was an entertaining match. Like I said, we haven't seen MJF for quite a while now. So you had segments with him since he's become middleweight champion, but nothing really serious. He had his feud with Joey Ryan, which has kind of stopped for a bit. And of course, I don't know how long they'll keep continuing that, or they'll address it more, because Joey Ryan is now injured with potentially serious pec injury. We mentioned that last week if you've watched our podcast with myself and Greg talking about it. So we moved on. We had a video recap of what went down between the Hart Foundation and Kevin Sullivan. Tony Schiavone is conducting a phone interview with Sullivan, who was Brian Pillman's manager and was helping him learn the ropes in MLW. And of course, when he joined the Hart Foundation, he attacked his longtime mentor. So the Taskmaster gives an update on Taskmaster Sullivan gives an update on his concussion situation, and the suspicions that his protege set him up. Yeah, shocker. He also promises to teach Brian Pillman Jr. a lesson. So we'll see how that leads. Of course, MLW has their big Fightland event. At the time I'm recording, they had it. So the tapings haven't come out yet, but I'm sure we'll see what happened. So then, of course, we follow an interview with Conan regarding Darga's debut match. He talks about Darga's journey to his title fight, and he promises not to let Selena and her cronies get involved. Let me repeat. He promises not to let Selena and her cronies get involved. What do you think happens? So then we have the video package for MLW's December events, Never Say Never and 0 Hour, which are on the December 13th and December 14th respectively. Now, the main event, the MLW Championship match, Daga, who, if you're familiar with Lucha Underground, is 1/3 of the Trios champions as part of the Reptile Tribe. In his first match, going up against pretty much a master striker in low-key in terms of strong style. Both of these men are strong style competitors, of course. You have Daga, who is kind of a mix. He does the strong style, but he also can do a little bit of the lucha elements here and there. But yeah, Daga, he does a bit of a combination of everything. So we've been building up to this match, and of course we knew how it ended, and I was really nervous. Did I have every right to be? Yes. How did it turn out? It was fine. I'm not disappointed. I'm not disappointed in it. I still had fun, and it was still a great showing by both men. So I've mentioned this before, MLW, because it's always leading to the next biggest thing. And when we finally get to the big moment, the big main event, sometimes it doesn't deliver the way you want it to. And I was thinking, because again, these two guys are all about strong style. I was expecting them to beat the shit out of each other. Didn't really happen. Now, it was really just about these guys kind of sizing each other up, trying to gain an advantage. But towards the end, yes, they did kind of start getting into some chops and some strikes, and I wish they focused on that a lot longer. But then, of course, the finish happened, which I will get to in a second. But yeah, so it's a lot of high-flying, fast-paced energy. Of course, Dago with the Lucha Libre striking, and of course, Loki's power of Japanese strong style. So I think, one of the main reasons probably why they didn't do strong style to begin with, because if you start going hard against Loki, you're in for a world of hurt. So I don't know. Maybe he kind of knew going into it, saying like, "Yeah, I'll be cautious," which I can't fault Daga for that if that's actually what was going on and how they tried to play it. But yeah, it was mainly, for the most part, a lot of traditional grappling. Each man's trying to gain the edge over the other. Loki got main advantage. Daga, when he got some separation, he was able to get a bit of momentum, but really Loki dominated for most of the match. So when it looked like Daga was trying to get a bit of momentum going, then a bit of leeway, out comes Ricky Martinez, of course the assistant of Selena De La Renta. Now, Conan, what do you... So we had the promo where Conan said that he will make sure that no one gets involved. And he's just standing there. Like, Ricky Martinez, he's not distracting the referee. Let's point this out. He's not distracting the referee. He's just standing alongside Conan. He's not doing it. He's just, like, trying to psych out Conan. And then Conan points Martinez out to the referee, causing the distraction. That would have been fine if Conan had just let Martinez just stay away. Like, if he just didn't even acknowledge him. The match... Of course, this is wrestling, but if we're trying to apply some logic to this, Conan screwed out Daga. If he had just ignored Martinez, like, Martinez was just standing there, like, when the referee was just saying, like, "Hey, go away." Like, Martinez is like, "I'm just standing here." And of course, we have that confusion, like, I can't blame Martinez for saying that. Of course, like, he has bad intentions on his mind, but at the same time, he literally wasn't doing anything. So all this kerfuffle allows the ref to subtly hand Loki something, so unless you really pay attention, otherwise it looks like Loki has literally just tried to rip off Daga's ear. It was very... like, it wasn't as bloody as I thought it would be, so they masked it really well, how they handled it. So while the referee was distracted, Loki is just cutting at the same time, pulling at Daga's cauliflowered ears, which Oh, that's just apparently Darga's had a history of ear problems. Naturally, if you have cauliflower ears as a fighter, you're really always conscious of them. So, poor dude, and the balls on him for actually doing this, my god. So, after that, Darga is clinging onto his ear to avoid further blood loss, and Loki gets up to the top of the ring, does his double foot stomp, and that's how he gets the pinfall while Darga's ear is still bleeding pretty profusely, I might add. So it was still intense. It still delivered on what you expected. It wasn't as savage as you thought it would be, which, I don't know, maybe I'm just full of bloodlust in my wrestling, but I don't know. I feel like hearing all this stuff and all the hype, you can't help but think that this is going to be a bit bloodier. But I did have fun. Now, one thing I'll mention before I finish talking about MLW, of course, like, what is Conan going to do? Of course, he's again lost another one of his fighters to Promociones Dorada, but as they're promoting the next MLW episode, one of the interviewers comes out, and I swear to God, the interviewers are on another plane of existence, because we've had interviews over the past couple months, of course, the backstage interviews, and whenever Promociones Dorada are interviewed, they intimidate the crap out of the interviewers. They embarrass them. They make them speechless, you know? I feel like it was the same woman who they literally scared the shit out of just a few episodes prior. I have to look it up, but the interviewer walks out after Loki has literally seemingly ripped off Darga's ear. Just smile, beaming, saying, "Wow, that was an intense match, Loki. Do you have anything to say for Filthy Tom Lawler?" Like, it felt so shoehorned in, and I was expecting Loki just to snap at her and just to really scare the crap out of her, or at least tell her to piss off after it, you know? But, like, the interviewers are on a different plane altogether. It's like, when they're backstage, they're terrified, but when they're out in front of the crowd, they are so happy, which is so off-putting. But, of course, Loki rolls with it. He's saying that he will, like, Tom Lawler can't compete with him. He is a failure in MMA, and you're, like, doing his MMA career. He'll be a failure in MLW. He's not worried. I'll essentially beat him to a bloody pulp, just like I did this poor bastard in the ring. That's essentially how it went. And it was a bit of a WTF moment for me to end on with MLW. So, and now, interviewers, seriously, like, step up your game. Assess the situation. If they tried to apply more logic to this, with how Promociones Dorada has been belittling them, they should have just been begrudgingly coming out, "Oh, I don't want to do this," you know, but there was just, like, nothing going on behind the eyes, complete beaming smile. It was so weird. I cannot describe it. It's just so bizarre, and no one else is mentioning it. But okay, so we had our 2 championship matches. We had Marco Stunt going up in his match. We had Puma King's match. Overall, very good time. Very good time for everyone involved. So, and of course, we have our episode 31 coming up, headlined by Sami Callihan going up against Filthy Tom Lawler in a Chicago street fight. You have Ricky Martinez going up against Dr. Rex Bacchus. I don't recall him, but we will see if I can remember him more clearly in next episode. And of course, we have Joey Ryan and Swoggle going up against the Dirty Blondes, which finally, the Dirty Blondes have been away from MLW for what seems like the past 2 months. It's been a while, and I'm, for those of you who are frequent listeners, I love tag teams in MLW. We need more tag teams, and of course, with only an hour's worth of wrestling, you need as many people in there as possible to just promote everything. So, I'm looking forward to this. Let me know, guys, in the comments or hit me up on Instagram and on Twitter on the socials at MrMyster1ous with a 1 instead of an I, what you thought of MLW episode 30 and what the future holds for MLW going into the Chicago Street Fight. I should mention that little bit of news that caught my eye. So MLW had their Fightland taping and they had the best attendance record in the company's history. They sold out their Fightland event, which I'm really happy to see. It looks like MLW is really growing. I do want to see it rise to new heights. At the moment, it's a lot of guys from Impact and a lot of indie guys, some lucha guys in there. So it's a bit of an amalgamation, and I love cross collaborations and just different storytelling with a lot of low-key guys, but also some more well-known names. I'm going to get into the WWE news and all the other news in the wacky world of wrestling, but of course, I will cut to our fearless leader, Greg, as he talks about our sponsor for today's podcast.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
The B Plus is growing, and we want you to be a part of it. So if you have an idea for a podcast, or if you want to write reviews for shows, whether that's WWE, New Japan, local shows especially, we have a big focus on Aussie Graps here. So if you go out to shows in Melbourne, we specifically need people in New Zealand, Tasmania, and Queensland. If you go out to shows in those areas, please let us know. We would love to hear from you. We would love to work with you. If you have a passion for wrestling and you want to write about anything wrestling, it can be anything. It can be listicles, it can be in-depth articles, opinion pieces, show reviews, whatever you want to do. If it's wrestling, it's fair game. Shoot us a message or send an email to thebplus@unchained.media. That's thebplus@unchained.media. Let us know what you want to do and we'll get back to you and we'll work something out, because the B Plus is growing and we want to grow the B Plus family. Sorry to interrupt the podcast, B Plus players, but I just need to take a second to tell you about Threadbox. Threadbox is a subscription service for men that makes looking good easier than ever before. Just fill out a few questions to start building your style profile, and from there you will be paired with a stylist who will send you new threads once a month, so you don't have to worry about checking the stores and finding new clothes. It's like having a personal shopper and stylist at your fingertips, and you just sit back, relax, wait for your awesome new gear to arrive in the mail. They sent me a box this month. I got a new pair of jeans. I got 2 shirts. You can check out the unboxing video on the Facebook page. And the best part about it is you can get in touch with your stylist by email at any time. So if you need new singlets, if you need new long sleeves, if you need new shoes, if there's something specific you want, you just let them know what you need and they'll tailor the box to your specific requests. It's a completely personalized service available on any budget. You'll always get way more value than you pay for because Threadbox work with all the best brands. Boxes start from just $40, and if you use our code, the B+15 at checkout today, you're going to get 15% off your first box. So what are you waiting for, man? If you want to look better with less effort, head to threadbox.com.au and use the code the B+15 to get your box today.
And we are back, guys. Now, let's talk about some of the great news that has come out from the land of WWE. And one of the biggest news stories that's come out for me is that the potential WrestleMania main event has been revealed. Right? In this week's edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer, or as I fondly refer to him as Wrestling Journalist Jesus, the guy seems to give us all the best wrestling news. He is all for the fans. He has his sources. He gives us all our stories. And pretty much, if you really pay attention to a lot of stories, a good 50-60% of them are from the crackdowns of Dave Meltzer. The rest are from Twitter wars and just other things here and there, like, oh, hey, someone's pointing this out. So, Wrestling Journalist Jesus has given us some wise words of wisdom in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, where he claims that the Becky Lynch-Ronda Rousey match that, of course, was meant to steal the show at Survivor Series before Nia Jax gave Becky Lynch a broken nose and a severe concussion. We'll talk about that in a second. I was really disheartened that, of course, at the time I'm recording, this is just a few days before Survivor Series 2018, so we now have Charlotte going up against the Raw Women's Champion Ronda Rousey, which will be a great match. I'm not saying that it won't, but the hype, the build-up between Ronda Rousey and the man, Becky Lynch, oh, that would have been so great. But I think people realize, because the rumor is that the decision to have those two compete, now that they can't do it at Survivor Series, it supposedly will now take place at the next WrestleMania, possibly as the main event. So this was a decision that was recently made by Ronda Rousey and Vince McMahon earlier in the week. I've got the full quote from Dave Meltzer here. So Vince McMahon and Rousey decided that the best course of action was to do the match at WrestleMania. Rousey and Lynch immediately went at it hard on social media, even though Rousey's new opponent on the pay-per-view is Charlotte Flair. Meltzer later writes that there is a good chance the women will main event WrestleMania for the first time ever this year. Rousey versus Flair was talked about after last year's Mania, and at the time there were questions about Rousey headlining such a big show. And as a single with her level of experience, there's far less doubt about that now, and I couldn't agree more about that. Now, I will confess, I was not a fan of Becky Lynch turning heel initially, because she is so over. She is so over, and the decision to make Charlotte Flair the babyface in that situation was so stupid. Even looking back, of course, with the last woman standing match, like, both those two ladies gave it their all. They were really great, but they could not get over the fact that the audience just loves Becky Lynch. They love the man, right? They really dug their feet on the fact that, no, Becky's a heel. Stop talking, right? And the fans are still there. And all this build-up kind of culminated, of course, with the Ronda Rousey match that was meant to happen. And after Raw this past week, with the SmackDown Women's Survivor Series team just assaulted the Raw Women's division, and Becky Lynch basically manhandled Ronda Rousey in the back, just dominated the women's division of Raw, got a good lead over Ronda Rousey, and then she made her way up the arena, blood coming down her nose, of course, from Nia Jax. That moment should prove to everyone that Becky Lynch is now freaking Stone Cold Steve Austin for the women's division. Of course, the Irish Lass Kicker is her own person. She is the man. She is her own entity. But if we can describe it, she has that like badassery now that is up there with Stone Cold Steve Austin. She is the man, right? I will not stop talking enough positive things about the man. Like, I saw that with the blood coming down, and I'm in love with all of this stuff that Becky's doing. She is just fantastic as the SmackDown Women's Champion. Now, and it's weird to say as well, because Ronda Rousey, she has had a great run, and I love the fact that she shows that despite being this insanely gifted athlete, of course, coming from UFC, she gets wrestling, she gets storytelling, she gets emotion. She knows, if anything, if there was any impression that you got from her match at Evolution against the Bella Twins, is that Rousey knows how to sell. It was really for her to showcase that the right kind of a person can beat her if they have the right mentality. So it's not about the physicality so much, it's just that they can get inside her head. And I felt like that would have really played into the Lynch-Rousey match at Survivor Series, which potentially will happen at WrestleMania now. I am all for that. We will go to, as well, and funnily enough, because all this stuff, this thing is going to be building to something great, because Funko announced recently that a new Ronda Rousey pop figure is on the way. But with all of this news about Becky Lynch going up against Rousey, and of course Becky Lynch not being cleared to compete, a few Becky Lynch fans had a few things to say to Funko. So, not long after, fans of the man began to troll them with replies of, "Yeah, but the people want the man with a bloody chase variant. I think you better stock up on the man as the biggest selling Funko of all time. Hope you can fix it. Can't leave the champ out." You know, everyone's fighting for Becky Lynch, and Becky Lynch's Twitter game, not to be outdone, Becky just replied, "I already own Ronda Rousey." Mic drop. Her Twitter war game is on point, right? You'll see it on your feeds if you've been following her feed over the past few weeks, or people have been sharing it, because her work on Twitter is brilliant, right? And of course, I'll mention, because of Nia Jax's actions, Nia Jax posted up a picture of her hand, which got cut up from striking Becky Lynch, and she kind of seemingly jokingly just said that, "Oh, is no one going to ask how my hand is?" Right? And here's Becky Lynch's response: "You gave me your best sucker punch, but I got back up to destroy your whole roster. They won't let me fight, but I'll get back up from that too. It's what I do. So enjoy your one free shot, because as bad as my memory is now, I haven't forgotten you, bitch." I love Becky Lynch. What else is there to say? What else is there to say? Like, with Nia Jax as well, there's rumblings that Vince McMahon is not happy that the Survivor Series match got stalled, like, if the WrestleMania rumors are true. And, like, understandable. And Nia's, like, she seems like she's gotten back to that point where the company were going to go behind her again. We'll see, of course, in the coming weeks of Raw, and of course my lovely colleagues in the View from WWE Universe will cover more of that. But it seems like Nia might have just kind of shot herself in the foot. And WWE, like, if you mess with their plans, or if, like, they can be very petty, like, they might stall her push a little bit now, her other push. And I'll be honest, she hasn't been very safe with a lot of stars during her run with Raw. I'll be honest, there are a lot of people, like, there have been talks about maybe sending her back to NXT, which, like, we can talk about NXT later, but yeah, she might just, I don't know how, we can't know for certain at this point whether Nia was meant to strike Becky, but she just didn't pull back enough. Because that image of Becky with the blood nose, like, if that was accidental, that was perfect, because that imagery, I loved it. But I feel bad for Nia at the same time, because if this is all just accidental, and with how we as the WWE fan base know how the McMahons are and how the WWE creative team are when you mess up their plans, we better keep you guys updated about that as the news progresses. But moving on to another big swerve in WWE, Daniel Bryan is now the new WWE champion. In the go-home episode of SmackDown for Survivor Series, AJ Styles went up against Daniel Bryan once again for the WWE Championship at the goading of Paul Heyman, who showed up on SmackDown. I love to see him there. It was, like, very, like, holy shit, it's Paul Heyman. And the setup was pretty silly, of course, saying, like, Daniel Bryan came to the ring, started attacking AJ Styles, like, say my name one more time and see what happens. Like, a couple 5-year-olds on the playground, just, like, say it one more time, and they say things one more time, and then they snap, and then you have fighting over the most petty reasons. But the setup is not important. The important bit is that Daniel Bryan won the WWE Championship, ending AJ Styles' 300, like, year. It feels like a year-long reign at the very least, right? I don't want to get the figure wrong, but the way he did it, the ref was distracted, and what happened in all the confusion, Daniel Bryan got the low blow on AJ Styles, followed up with a running knee, 1, 2, 3, new WWE champion, and then followed it up further with another beatdown to AJ Styles to signify that Daniel Bryan is now a fully fledged heel. And oh my god. Now, one thing before I get into my story, someone in the WWE creative team really doesn't like AJ Styles, or at the very least, they don't want him to have any more kids. Because how many times have we seen AJ Styles get hit in the nuts? Like, if he's not wearing a cup by now, I don't know what to tell you. But someone, of course the stuff with Nakamura, but even before that, there are instances from house shows and everything else where people just like kicking AJ Styles in the dick. It's, we could set up a conspiracy theory from there, like saying that AJ Styles might have some backstage arguments, and then when he doesn't get his way, he gets kicked in the nuts on an episode of SmackDown. But this decision to make Daniel Bryan WWE Champion, according to Dave Meltzer, again, according to wrestling journalist Jesus, wasn't a response to the Women's Championship match and with Becky Lynch's untimely broken face, but it was made, in fact made before, because, and as for Bryan's heel turn, it's something that he's been pushing for a lot recently, with Vince McMahon only deciding to pull the trigger on last week's Raw hours before it started. Dave Meltzer said, "It's a complicated story. Daniel Bryan himself has been pushing the idea of going heel just because he's booking as a babyface with The Miz. It's counterproductive. For whatever the reason, I don't know the reason, but it was over the weekend. Vince changed plans and wanted to go with Brock Lesnar against Daniel Bryan. So this is before the Becky Lynch injury, but the heel turn was decided this afternoon. It was basically Vince going, let's do it all in one day and get the biggest impact." Which, yeah, this past episode of SmackDown was huge. But I'm really curious why, of course, like, naturally we had AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar last year at Survivor Series, and Brock Lesnar was successful because he is the beast and all that. But I don't know what the decision was to finally give Daniel Bryan the championship. Like, naturally, it seems like we're going with now Daniel Bryan versus The Miz at WrestleMania, WWE Championship on the line potentially, with Daniel Bryan as the heel and The Miz as the babyface. This could be a really great story to tell. Like, it feels like the story, like, because the match with The Miz and Daniel Bryan at Super Showdown in Melbourne was crap. Like, it ended so abruptly. If you hear anyone's stories from Showdown or whoever watched it, they'll tell you exactly the same thing. And the feud with Miz and Daniel Bryan, there is so much history there, and it felt like it kind of petered out a little bit, which it shouldn't have. It shouldn't have ended as quickly as it did, but now, with this change, with Miz maybe turning face now, like you saw inklings at the World Cup, if you actually watch that, I don't know. But now we have The Miz potentially being the babyface going into WrestleMania. And like we saw inklings at the World Cup, like if you actually watch Crown Jewel, which I didn't, because I still stand by the fact that Crown Jewel was just a complete dumpster fire. But if you heard the results, if you followed the story, you know that Miz wanted to go and compete. He wanted to win for Team SmackDown, but he just couldn't. And then, of course, Shane McMahon won, being the best in the world, which we'll see what happens there. But all this stuff, and now it's just reinvigorated this feud. And I'm really happy with it. But going back to AJ Styles, it feels like they were protecting him by making him lose the championship, which sounds bizarre. And I don't know, maybe they just thought, we've seen AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar already, and Brock Lesnar is only going to have a handful of matches, not even a handful, one handful of matches going into Royal Rumble, potentially, or WrestleMania. Of course, he's got his UFC match scheduled against Daniel Cormier, potentially at UFC 233, which is around about the same time as NXT TakeOver and the Royal Rumble. So, yeah, if we've seen it before, like, of course, it would have been wonderful to see the match all over again, because it was a great match. You should watch the match between AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar, because if you get tired of watching Brock Lesnar just completely do the PC F5s, like default move setting, switch, start, It's like he's just a boss level computer character at this point. He's got all the powers, he's got all the finishes. He's Suplex City, F5, that's all he does. But in the match with AJ Styles, it went for a good while, and AJ pulled a lot out of Brock, which, like, Brock is, if he's invested enough, he can do a lot. And, like, there's a reason that he was a freaking wrestling champion before he went to WWE, if you remember his early run in the early 2000s. But yeah, I'm disheartened that we don't get to see AJ versus Brock 2. Of course, Brock probably would have won it. I'm curious how Daniel Bryan, what will happen with this match between Daniel Bryan and Brock Lesnar. I feel like AJ Styles will come out to get one over Bryan, and they'll kind of feud, and then once Daniel Bryan wins that decisively, then we'll go back to The Miz. I think that's what's going to happen. We'll see what goes on there, but a lot of big reveals over in WWE land, and with AJ Styles now no longer WWE champion, we could see him maybe climbing back up the ladder again in a different way that none of us expected. Moving on, awesome segue, I should point out, WWE has added a stipulation to this season of the Mixed Match Challenge, where it's recently announced that the winners of the Mixed Tag Team Tournament will be the 30th entrants in their respective Royal Rumble matches in January 2019. WWE is also promoting that winners receive an all-expenses paid vacation to anywhere in the world. Okay. Very interesting. At the moment of recording, the 4 teams who are undefeated in the tournament are set to face against each other on this week's episode. You've got Ember Moon and Braun Strowman will wrestle against Mickie James and Bobby Lashley. In the Raw match, you'll see Asuka and The Miz. They'll face Charlotte Flair and now not WWE champion, AJ Styles. And you've got Asuka and The Miz were the winners of the Mixed Match Challenge last season, in Season 1. And the Mixed Match Challenge airs on Facebook Watch after SmackDown on Tuesdays. And, of course, it will conclude at TLC on December 16th. With this news, I feel like, because this is a big thing, it may seem like a subtle thing, but it's a big thing. Of all these teams that we've gone through, I feel like AJ Styles and Charlotte, if they could win this and be number 30 spots in the Rumble, of course, this is just the number 30 spots. It doesn't necessarily mean that they'll win the Rumble. It just means that they have the best chance of winning the Rumble. And it's kind of weird that we know who the 30th entrants are, which is a bit of a twist, I will say. And one of the reasons, of course, I think is because all expenses paid vacation anywhere in the world, we focus on AJ's family a lot, saying, like, he probably want to take his family out, get some time away after all the stuff that's happened. You know, who knows? I might just be reaching, but I feels like they're going to keep him in the title picture if he wins the Mixed Match Challenge with Charlotte. Of course, there are a whole bunch of other people here who it would be great to see. We could have Asuka and The Miz. That would be awesome. Maybe that's how The Miz will get his title shot against Daniel Bryan, right? And Asuka, my God, Asuka as a freaking women's championship contender again. Did WWE forget that Asuka is a complete monster? Did everyone forget that? She was undefeated for a reason, for a long time. And if you guys saw on this past episode of SmackDown where Becky Lynch was choosing her replacement to go up against Ronda Rousey, the crowd was so behind Asuka. Like, that would have been amazing to see, but of course with the build-up and the stories they've had with Asuka, they've just they've watered her down so much. So if this Mixed Match Challenge could do anything, it could literally build her up again. And if she wins the Royal Rumble for the women's division, again, a 2-time winner of the Royal Rumble, maybe, we'll see how we do. Now, moving on to some other WWE news. Triple H has gone on, prior to War Games, he's gone on to do a couple of interviews about NXT, saying that WWE talent going from Raw back to NXT, or main event stars from Raw and SmackDown going to the NXT roster, could be a big deal. Where he said, and I quote, "I think you can be at a place where you can see the main level talent stay in NXT. We are also at the point where you can see some talent that have been on Raw and SmackDown for periods of time, who have had some success or haven't for whatever reason, who aren't being utilized go back to NXT. A talent who doesn't get a lot of exposure on SmackDown and moves to Raw. It could be a game changer for them, and all of a sudden they can do something different. I do think NXT is a third brand. No shit. NXT is its own brand. Definitely. I wholeheartedly believe that. And it seems like the fact that Triple H is saying it out loud kind of proves what a lot of people might be thinking, that they're really knuckling down on NXT, and the goal isn't so much anymore that the NXT roster has to go to the quote-unquote main roster of Raw and SmackDown. It's one of those things where there are some great talent in NXT who are in some of the best positions they could ever be in the company. They're getting so much attention. Why would they get a quote-unquote push up to Raw and SmackDown where they can just be really underutilized? Like, we've got Andrade Cien Almas, who's just jobbing out to everyone at the moment. Of course, he's still fresh in his career, but we know the guy can go. Right? There's so many, like Shinsuke Nakamura. Granted, yes, US champion. What is going on with him? Like, I remember going to an NXT taping here in Australia with the NXT guys when Shinsuke was the champion, going up against Samoa Joe. Everyone was so over for him. Like, it was Shinsuke Nakamura, man. Like, all this stuff. But I'm happy that Triple H has actually gone out and said all this. Like, it's really awesome. You feel vindicated to hear that stuff. Right? Now, I'll move on as well. So since we're talking about the performance guys, but the quote-unquote, the guys who are not part of the main roster, I will use as much quotey fingers as I possibly can there. And we will talk about the WWE Performance Center. They actually have their own YouTube channel now. So the Performance Center is where every aspiring superstar's heroic journey begins. Each comes to the WWE Performance Center with their own origin story, but every one of them must walk the road of determination and hard work if they hope to ascend to WWE's main roster. As each walks that road, WWPC, though they've abbreviated it for you, will bring you the amazing moments from their real lives, victories, defeats, and life at the Performance Center. See the world through the eyes of aspiring superstars. That is the description on the WWPC YouTube channel. At the time that I'm recording, it already has about 7,500 followers, 7,500 subscribers. Get on it, guys. At the moment, it's very small, of course. If you're listening to this back now, you'll be laughing, saying like, oh, it's so big now. But at the moment I'm recording, there's just a couple of 360 tests. And interestingly enough, we've got a documentary on there about Matt Riddle, right? So, and a description as well about Matt Riddle saying, few superstars have generated as much buzz as quickly as NXT newcomer Matt Riddle. Get a never-before-seen look at the King of Bros' arrival to the black and yellow brand in the series premiere of Arrival. Available now on the new WWE Performance Center YouTube channel. The debut episode of Arrival follows Matt Riddle and his family as they prepare to make the move from their home in Northampton to Orlando, the site of the WWE Performance Center. From his first meeting with Triple H at TakeOver to candid comments from Riddle on what it means to join NXT, Arrival will bring you closer to the King of Bros than ever before. If this wasn't proof positive that, like, naturally this is great for all the other stars in the Performance Center and their journey to become part of NXT, and then maybe more than that, of course, what we just talked about, NXT being its own brand, maybe some stars will just stay with all the other amazing hot talent there, but some will go further up to Raw and SmackDown. But this definitely shows that they are investing so much time in Matt Riddle, right? He is the King of Bros for a reason. The guy is super talented, former UFC fighter, right? Which is the hot thing going on in wrestling over the past couple of years, right? And he's been talking for a while that his overall goal is to dethrone Brock Lesnar, right? He's glad that he won the Universal Championship again. He's saying, keep it warm for me while I make my journey to the main roster and then beat you. Like, I can't remember whether it was on Twitter or was it an article I read a couple weeks ago where he said, ideally, He wants to be NXT champion for a little while. After that, move on to Raw, then get some attention there, like completely dominate, and then face off against Brock Lesnar and retire him. I can see that happening. Like, depending on how Brock Lesnar's, if you want to make a swan song to the Beast's run with WWE, if you want to call it that, because we don't know what's going to happen with his UFC match against Daniel Cormier. I could see Matt Riddle, and that could be one of those dream matches. Like, we could be reaching for the stars there, of course, with some MMA guys. Like, Brock seems like he's just feeling the call of MMA again. Like, he might just not want to be a part of WWE anymore. Just like another guy that we're going to talk about. I'm just killing it with the segues, right? We're talking about CM Punk. Now, if you heard our podcast last week, our leader Greg Unchained had a bit of a theory that CM Punk might be considering going back to wrestling. What promotion, we aren't sure. But when I was talking to Greg alongside him about it, it seems to me that it's not so much that he is coming back, it's that they're teeing up storylines for him to sink his teeth into if he actually entertained the idea. So if he went over to WWE, of course you've got Shane McMahon being the quote-unquote best in the world. Like, that could be something for him to go with. Over in the indie scene, you had Cody Rhodes and Chris Jericho talking on Chris Jericho's podcast about how Punk wasn't really a locker room leader. They could really go forward with that. But in an interview with the Associated Press, where they were meant to be discussing Punk's new role as the MMA announcer, but of course, all the questions went on to his pro wrestling career. And they actually asked him how he feels about the WWE fans still chanting his name after all this time. And he said, you stop it and 5 years later people still talk about you. Fans still chant your name? That's powerful to me. So it seems like he's still very amused that his name's kind of become the thing where if fans aren't happy with what's going on, they will chant CM Punk's name as a kind of a translation of just like, this is boring, or this shouldn't be happening, or if they do it by the literal meaning, we want CM Punk, which we all do. As for, of course, the question came once again to plans about him maybe returning to WWE or to wrestling in general. He says, I don't pay attention. People seem to get upset when I say that. So, again, I don't think he's coming back to WWE. I don't think he's coming back to wrestling at all. Right? But it seems like if he were to ever entertain the notion that these companies are kind of sowing the seeds for him, so that if he finally entertains everything, that he might decide, okay, I'm going to follow this. Because he followed up with, like, because when people asked him about his future MMA career, like if he's going to have another MMA match, he said, since my last fight, I've been juggling a half dozen things. I kind of gave myself a deadline at the beginning of the new year to find out what's coming next. I don't rule anything out. Absolutely not. So maybe he doesn't rule anything out with his wrestling career as well. I don't know. Right, so again, Greg, if you're listening, I personally don't think, as much as I loved your theory last week, I don't personally think that CM Punk's coming back, but we will always entertain the notion. I will happily talk about CM Punk, Chick Magnet Punk, which is the official legal name for CM Punk, according to the court transcripts with his whole war with WWE after his firing. Like, so it's just like a little tidbit. Like, everyone was just like, what's the CM stand for? Like, according to official legal documentation, it's Chick Magnet. Like, people would just like joke around saying like it's such and such. Like, but the fact that it's like was finally clarified after CM Punk won his court case with the WWE Dr. Charles Amann. Bit of trivia there for all you guys to know if you didn't know already. Now we have a whole bunch of other wrestling news to talk about, guys, so I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. So we've got a couple injuries, potential injury reports. We have Luke Harper, a picture surfaced on Twitter with him and a fan, and if you notice that he had a bit of a cast on his arm, so we haven't seen Luke Harper on SmackDown since his partner Eric Rowan was, of course, injured as well, and he had to go recover. And of course, the Wyatt family, they're all off the WWE radar at this point. So Luke Harper might be injured, and that might be a reason why you haven't seen him for a while. Whether they bring back the Wyatt family and reinvent them, I don't know. It sucks. Like, we should see more of them. But I'll just drop that in there. Of course, we have Alexa Bliss. Her current injury status at the moment, they're keeping a close eye on her because she has had apparently a lot of multiple concussions in a short period of time, which, if you guys remember Daniel Bryan, like, that's no joke. The fact that, yes, Alexa Bliss is the captain of the Raw Women's Survivor Series team, but I don't know. We will keep you guys updated about that. Hopefully we'll see Alexa Bliss back in the ring soon. So she's been out of action for at least a month, just being more the managerial side. But we'll see. So we'll follow right along. We'll move away from WWE land. We'll talk about another person who has had a bit of an injury, Cody Rhodes. So Cody, at a house show, he had to have minor knee surgery. He announced it on his Twitter. He says that it's minor, and at the moment, his current dates for the next month or so, he hasn't cancelled anything yet. So whether he's staying true to his word, saying he's just having a quick his knee looked at, I hope so, because he's meant to be coming to Australia as part of World Series Wrestling in the next couple of weeks. And I would really love to see the American Nightmare once more after he came at the start of the year for New Japan's Australian tour, which was a huge success. My God. So I hope, of course, like, Cody Rhodes, man, the guy is so solid. He is in the best shape of his career. He's having one of the best runs of his career. We want nothing but the best for him, including a potential Nick Aldis versus Cody 3, because the latest episode of 10 Pounds of Gold came out, and if you guys aren't following the NWA YouTube channel, my God, what are you doing? What are you doing listening to me? Please subscribe to the NWA YouTube channel to follow 10 Pounds of Gold there. Awesome documentary series, because the NWA is literally going places with that, and with guys like Cody and Nick Aldis. Of course, Nick Aldis is now, once again, the NWA Heavyweight Champion, and it followed the story of their last encounter at the 70th anniversary, and how Nick Aldis flat out said he thinks that the history between him and Cody, like, their feud, could be one of the best stories of wrestling in the modern era, not just for NWA, but for the entire wrestling scene, which I cannot fault him for saying that, right? I would love to see NWA pull Aldis versus Cody 3 once again. Now, Cody mentioned on there offhandedly that there's a lot of business contractual stuff going on with the fact that if that were to happen once more, but if everyone gets behind that match, then yep, because Cody's all for it. So as long as everyone else is all for it, that'd be fantastic. And Nick Aldis actually said as well he wants some bigger fish to face now that he has tasted defeat. He doesn't like it. Now that he's regained his title, he is apparently now more dangerous than ever. Of course, he's got his new valet with him, Camille. We'll see how that transpires, and Aldis wants someone just as dangerous as him. I'm really curious who could be the potential next contender for Aldis's heavyweight championship. I think on the YouTube channel that he faced off against Jake Strong, or Jake Hager, or Jack Swagger, whatever you want to call him. Whether that was the big, quote-unquote, big fish, I don't think so, but we'll see how intense these NWA matches get early on. And of course, with 10 Pounds of Gold, we saw a little bit more backstory and elaboration onto the women's champion Jazz and the new NWA national champion Willie Mack. Very humbling stuff to see those two get a bit of time on the NWA YouTube channel there, just saying how much they love the fans and that they are going nowhere. I can see Jazz being the women's champion for another couple years. But long may she reign. Jazz is going to completely dominate the women's division. Over in NWA, Now, we have a few... we'll finish off with a couple of contract issues. Like, we love talking about business here on All The Rest, I'm not going to lie. But Silas Young is apparently a free agent now going into 2019. So his contract with Ring of Honor, the last real man, is going to be a free agent pretty soon. So he talked to Wrestling Inc. and he revealed that his current contract's up at the end of 2018. They asked him whether or not WWE is an option. Young stated that you can never say never in wrestling. For those of you who don't know, he did have a tiny role in WWE, I should say, in Heat. Remember Heat, guys? Remember Velocity? Those were the days. Memories. But yeah, Young went on to state that he's not against taking to either side and that ultimately it's a business at the end of the day. He says he'll do what's best for him and his family. However, he did give credit to his current promotion, Ring of Honor, saying that he loves ROH and that there are things there that he'd like to accomplish still. So, it's interesting because we've been following contracts. A lot of people haven't signed contracts yet for 2019. It's really bizarre. Like, we could set up... It feels like a conspiracy is happening right beneath our noses because you've got members of the Elite who still haven't signed their contracts. You had freaking Flip Gordon. Like, he recently signed a 2-year deal with Ring of Honor, but at the same time, he was interviewed about whether if the Elite were to leave Ring of Honor, he said anything can happen. There's so much time between now and whatever's supposed to happen. If they leave, that just opens up more opportunities. Just like when I came to Ring of Honor, there were a lot of guys that left. That's why I go to where I am so fast, because these opportunities were available for me. So and to mention as well, like, not just freaking Silas Young, but Kaz and Christopher Daniels, man, 2/3 of SCU. They apparently haven't signed their Ring of Honor contract either, and will both be free agents at the end of the year. Could we see a new promotion coming out for 2019? It could be building up that all these guys, the Elite, Daniels, Kazarian, Silas Young, like Flip Gordon maybe, I don't know, but a lot of these guys, the Lucha Brothers, freaking Pentagon and Ray Phoenix, they haven't signed their latest contracts either. A few stars is a coincidence, but the fact that so many guys are leaving their options open for 2019, I'm really curious. And we could be seeing potentially a new promotion coming out. Maybe, who knows, it might be Chris Jericho's new promotion that is quote-unquote maybe happening with Jim Ross, who knows? Or these guys might be going into business for themselves. Again, we mentioned in a couple podcasts prior that the Young Bucks have the trademark to All In. Where they go with that, I have no idea. But guys, that is going to be one of those really big things that I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot going forward. And I will end, guys. We have the new trailer for Fighting With My Family that came out recently. The story of WWE SmackDown General Manager Paige and her journey to become part of the WWE. If you weren't familiar with the Knight family, follow up, right? Those guys at, of course, Paige is part of the Knight dynasty with her mum, Sweet Saraya, and her father, Ricky Knight, the founders of WAW over in the UK. They are doing incredible work. Of course, they have Bellatrix over there as well, their female roster for England. The Knight family are no joke. All of them are no joke. And this is a movie that is produced by The Rock, directed by Stephen Merchant, who is appearing in the movie as well. If you've seen the trailer, like, let us know in the comments and everything else what you thought of it. I was entertained by the idea. Like, I was a little bit unsure. Of course, we had the teaser trailer of Paige and her brother Zach meeting The Rock for the first time. That was the only trailer we had about this. The woman who is playing Paige, Florence Pugh, P-U-G-H. I don't want to mispronounce it. I do apologize, but it looks like she's perpetually in it, a teenager throughout this whole thing. So, of course, Paige is still in her late 20s now, but I don't know. She looks really young in this. I don't know if they're going to try and age her up, but she seems like she might be a little too young for the role. Of course, that could not be a problem when we finally go see the movie. Whether this will be one of the great wrestling movies that shows an accurate portrayal of professional wrestling remains to be seen. Like, will it rise to the heights of The Wrestler with Darren Aronofsky and Mickey Rourke? Probably not, but this could be a really fun comedy thing. I want to point out there's some great choices in there for Lena Headey, aka Queen Cersei from Game of Thrones, as Sweet Saraya with the red hair. Perfect casting. I'm really curious about that one. Nick Frost is Ricky Knight. Of course, these guys, like Nick Frost and Lena Headey, they're about the same age. When Ricky Knight and Sweet Saraya, there's a good nearly 20 years, I think, between them. So I'm glad they didn't go older with that. So I think it's good that Nick Frost and Lena Headey, I can see them being a good on-screen couple there. The guy they got for Zack Knight's, Jack Loudon, looks exactly like him. I can't complain about that. Vince Vaughn stuck out to me like a sore thumb in this. Now, I'm really curious what his role will be, because if you look on IMDb, his character name is Hutch. But if you type in the movie into Google, the apparent role that Vince Vaughn is playing is Jake the Snake Roberts. Which, I don't know. I hope that's not the case. That could just be a typing error. I would hope that Vince Vaughn is just playing some random WWE official trainer, which is weird, like that Vince Vaughn is even in a movie about WWE or about the Knight family. We'll see how we do, but things like that. I'm really excited for a lot of the casting. I do hope this movie goes well. The Rock can do no wrong in a lot of ways, so I'm hoping that this is a real good love letter to professional wrestling. Of course, it's going to be a WWE-based centric thing, but at the same time, I am looking forward to this, even though there's a couple of things in here that make me a bit hesitant. But I think we will end with that, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what we do here, please leave us a comment and please leave us a 5-star review. It really does make a difference. We love to hear from you guys. If you want to follow myself on all the socials, I am Mr. Mysterious with a 1 and 7 I. If you want to follow the B Plus on Twitter, it's at the B Plus Wrestle, because wrestling just wouldn't fit. And the B Plus Wrestling on all the other socials. And if you want to follow our league of Greg Unchained, he is at Greg Unchained on Twitter and the Greg Unchained on Instagram. Thank you guys so much at all the B Plus land here. Like, share, subscribe, hit that 5-star review, and thank you so much for listening. Mysterious out.
Hold one! Arm drag! You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon. You just made the list! Oh my God!
Sorry, no speak English.
Dummy! Goodbye and good night. Hold two! Arm bar!
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
It's still real to me, damn it! Dummy! Hold three! The moss covered! Three-handle family grudungle!